The great example was in the airline industry with Airbus. I mean, they called it right out in their documentation, and thinking about the amount of data that they are integrating, again, across multiple platforms, multiple data warehouses, and probably tapping into other data repositories on top of internal data.
Growing a business requires a holistic approach that extends beyond sales and marketing. This approach needs alignment among people, processes, and technologies. So if you're a business owner, operations, or finance leader looking to learn growth strategies from your peers and competitors, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to the WBS Podcast, where scalable growth using business systems is our number one priority. Now, here is your host, Sam Gupta.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the WBS Podcast. I'm Sam Gupta, your host and principal consultant at the independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm Elevate IQ. The assertion of a data platform serving as an ERP is not new. Many companies grapple with discerning the disparity between the two. The distinction is further muddled as data platforms become software defined, emulating ERP functions, while data platforms traditionally reside in the architecture atop the transactional layer. Their role should be confined to study, analysis, simulations, and providing recommendations. They are by no means a substitute for operational systems. So how does Palantir measure up against the other solutions in the market? In today's episode, we invited a panel of industry experts for a live discussion on LinkedIn to conduct an independent review of Palantir's capabilities. We covered many grounds, including their overlap with other platforms such as ERP, supply chain suites, data integration, and ERP and ETL platforms. We also analyzed their current positioning and how they are essentially a custom development platform for decision science layer, despite their claims of being a replacement for ERP and other transactional software. With that, let's get to the conversation. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show. And if you're joining for the first time, this is part of our index for which every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, we review one vendor or the solution. And today we have one of the hottest technologies out there. It's called Palantir. So we are going to have a lot of fun discussing that. Before we do that, we are going to start with the intros. I am going to start with my quick intro. Sam Gupta, principal at Elevate IQ. Elevate IQ is the independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm. On that note, Dave, can I ask you to introduce yourself next?
Sure. Thanks, Sam. Hey, everybody. My name is Dave Chrysler, and I own an operations consulting business working with leaders to optimize operations and help drive sustainable growth, and come to you with more than 25 years of various operational leadership roles, and excited to be here with you guys in the new year. So great to have you. Yeah, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Dave.
Thanks for having me, Sam.
Of course. Thank you so much, Dave. Andy, can I ask you to go next?
Certainly. Thank you, Sam. My name is Andy Pratico, and I've been involved in ERP software for manufacturers all my life. I've worked with over 1,000 manufacturers throughout North America of all different types, specializing in aerospace and defense contractors. And I also teach people how to uncover the truth about ERP systems before they purchase. So thank you so much, Sam.
And Andy, you are going to enjoy this session today because these guys are
looking forward to it.
Lot of business in aerospace and defense. I mean, they are
really
known for defense. Yes. Yeah, like really, really big defense. So, all right, guys. So I'm actually going to start with our briefing. The way we do it, it's going to be slightly different this time. Okay. I will narrate some of the commentary that I have heard in the community. Whenever you have any new technology, there are going to be a lot of interpretations, sometimes misinterpretations, and debates in terms of the potential of the technology. So number one, Andy, the reason why this technology is hot is because of AI. Okay, there have been a lot of arguments in terms of what is their true capabilities and what they are going to do. For the most part, this was used by government to solve very, very, very complex problems for which they did not have any solution. It is driven by some of the recent trends. These problems did not exist before. The trends such as GDPR. GDPR changed a lot of different things. Okay, COVID changed a lot of different things, the way we conduct business, new problems for cities, government, society. So that's where all of this is coming from. So number one, the problem, and number two, obviously the technology is far superior. Now, some of my friends in the ERP community may disagree with me on my assessment, but there have been a lot of talk about this particular technology, about their positioning in the market, where they sort of fit, and what is going to be their correlation with the ERP industry, which is what is my interest. Okay, so a lot of people have argued that this is probably going to replace ERP. It has been used in many different contexts in conjunction with ERP. So, we are going to be touching on all of those points in terms of the kind of use cases that they have explored so far. Do they fit more into the whole supply chain suites that we have been reviewing so far? Basically, what we are trying to determine is their place in the architecture. For the most part, the right comparable here, Dave, overall from the alignment perspective, if we look at the competitive landscape, and for the first time, Dave, okay, I'm going to give you a massive, massive shout out to our friends at Gartner. Okay, typically we criticize them, but this time we are going to give them massive shout out. And the reason for that is because if you look at their quadrant, where they have ranked, Palantir, they have ranked in the right quadrant. It is the right comparison. So right comparable for this particular technology is going to be something like Snowflake, which is, Andy,
Wow.
the second hottest technology right now on Wall Street, where people are literally pouring money on that. So you have
Do
to.
you have a copy of that quadrant, the Magic Quadrant?
I don't know if we have on our slides. To be completely honest, yeah, maybe we will probably include that later on. But if you look at, and I don't remember the category in which Gardner has ranked.
Is it simple as AI, or was it
No,
something?
it's not. They don't rank in AI. They rank more into the data integration bucket. To be
Gotcha.
completely honest, and that's where their place is. That's where their real place is, and that's where even Snowflake belongs. Okay, so Gardner actually does a wonderful job in creating their quadrant only if you kind of knew how to read them. So in this particular case, they have ranked them in the right category, and the right comparable for them is going to be any data integration technologies. And generally, these data integration technologies, they were slightly technical in nature. Okay, so if you talk about companies like Informatica, Talent, all of these companies were very prevalent in the data space. In fact, Oracle had, I mean, the only reason why Oracle got into the ERP space is because they really want to rule data. And if you want to rule data, you have to be in the. So that's the reason why. I mean, for the most part, if you look at Oracle's positioning, they really wanted to sell a lot more databases. And that's why they had to figure out a problem where the majority of the data play was happening, and that's why they really got into the ERP space. So coming back to Palantir, and I have one comment here, I guess. So I think Dave is struggling a little bit. He lost audio, so hopefully he comes back. So overall, from the comparable perspective, and the Snowflake is probably going to be their biggest comparison. The other comparison in my mind is going to be some of the SNOP platforms that we have reviewed, or the data integration, data warehouse sort of platform. For the most part, their space is going to be, if you look at the traditional architecture, Andy, okay, so you have the operational system, and then you have the data-centric systems, which is going to be typically the foundation of that is going to be some sort of data warehouse. And typically in those data warehouse, you sort of bring data from multiple sources. And on top of that, you are going to build the data science layer. And these guys are providing a platform to provide a lot of infrastructure that these data engineers, data scientists are going to be needing to build their workflows. Again, it does touch the ERP a little bit, but it's not supposed to be the replacement for ERP. The foundational layer, the transactional layer, where your transactions are happening, should happen in ERP. These guys are going to be in that data layer where they can analyze the data. they can create a bunch of workflows, but once they have come up with the recommendations, basically more from the decision science perspective, the flow goes back to the ERP. So their space is going to be really in that decision science bucket, the data bucket, the intelligence bucket. And for the most part, Andy, I don't know whether you have checked our ERP maturity curve. Typically, this is very enterprise problem. It's not supposed to be SMB problem, to be completely honest. Okay. Once you have
Right.
gone through all of those stages in ERP maturity, once you are going to be at maturity 10, then probably you are going to be building the whole data science stack. And that's why if you look at their positioning from the Palantir perspective, they are primarily operating in the enterprise space. And that's really, really their space for the most part. And that's where they are doing the majority of the business. Andy, do you have any comments, or shall I move to the
No, I
slide?
just had a quick look on the Gartner quadrants,
Yeah,
and I was looking at the reviews,
yeah,
and my goodness, they're all very, very positive.
yeah. And do you happen to see the name of the quadrant? What are you looking at?
No, no, I just looked up. It's Gartner Peer Insights,
Yeah,
which is not quite their quadrant, but it
yeah,
has a lot of reviews and customer
yes,
comments and such, and
yes.
it's quite impressive.
Yes, we have covered some of those reviews as well. I think we have some from there as well. So we'll be touching on them during our presentation. So obviously in this particular case, and the insights, the major insights that we are going to draw are really from their financial statements, which is, in my mind, that's the real truth, because no company is supposed to lie in financial statements. Otherwise, they would be in jail. They need to be absolutely clear. And this is one
Well,
of
they got
the
to be a pretty good liar.
exactly. So in this particular case, I mean, a lot of insight is coming from financial statements, and you will be able to see a lot more detail in general about their positioning, risk. So we are going to get a lot more insights overall, not only about these guys, but I'll be touching on some of the other reviews that we have done. If they were public company, the kind of insights that we would be able to see about them. So here they are saying number one, and Andy, I don't know whether you recall any of the reviews that we have done for the public companies. For example, let's say if you look at Salesforce, Workday, these are public companies.
Yep.
And if you look at their positioning, they need to be absolutely clear what is their target market. Okay. And a lot of people argue that, what, Salesforce is a ERP vendor, Workday is an ERP vendor. Even we have included Workday as part of our ERP vendors list. But for the most part, if you look at Workday's positioning and their statement, they very rarely claim themselves as an ERP vendor. And this is the same thing that you are going to see even for these guys, because again, when you have the financial statements, they have to have very clear positioning. They cannot mislead their investors. So here they are saying we build software that empowers organizations to effectively integrate their data, decisions, and operations at a scale. Okay. So when you look at data and decisions, I'm going to call them out on operations because there could be several layers when you define the operations. So here they are doing a little bit of operations, but for the most part, their place is really data and decisions. Their place is not supposed to be that operational fabric that ERP is supposed to automate. It is supposed to be the augmentation layer on top of your core transaction or the ERP. That is their place. If somebody is using that for transaction, they are probably overusing it or over engineering it architecturally.
I've never heard the expression cloud agnostic before. That's an interesting comment.
You will hear that whenever you are dealing in the technology space, Andy, and that's a very, very, very common problem. Customers are looking for that. So for the most part, ERP space in general is very isolated from the real technology, to be completely honest.
Exactly.
Even though
Yeah.
we both are selling software,
Yeah.
but ERP companies don't really understand how technology is supposed to work. Okay. So when you get into the real technology, whether you're talking about the technology development or any custom development shops, okay, when the companies have very heavy investment in cloud infrastructure or some sort of cloud, right? For them, this is a huge problem. Okay, they cannot lock themselves up with any vendors, whether you are talking about Azure, you talk about
AWS
GCP.
or whoever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a huge problem for them. So if you talk to any of the CIOs, they will relate with it because they care for this. Okay, CFOs, they don't necessarily understand what this is. So that's why you don't hear as often. Now, So let's keep going, I guess. But great comment, Andy. We were founded in 2020, 2003, so they have been there for a long time. Even though
Wow.
AI is slightly newer for them, but they have been there for a very long time. Dave, are we good? Okay,
Good.
perfect. All right. So we were founded in 2003 and started building software for the intelligence community in the United States to assist in counter-terrorism. Okay.
Wow.
So yeah, so they were doing
All to do with the
really,
Patriots Act, I'll bet, eh?
yeah, exactly. Investigations and operations. Now, I would like to provide a little context here, okay? So when you talk about the operations of government, when you talk about operations of any of the government agencies, their operations are very different from any ERP centric operations. And that's where the real divide is overall in terms of the industry. So the processes that these organizations or the companies are going to have, they can never live inside an ERP just because of the differences in their processes. The maximum scope of their ERP is going to be probably for financial. And this is where, Andy, you have heard me saying that this is where I draw the line between your product and service-centric organizations. In my mind, service-centric organizations is going to be anything that is without inventory. Okay, and your product-centric organizations are going to be anything that is carrying the real inventory. Now, even in that, you could argue that, okay, even my service organizations have some sort of inventory because they have MRO inventory or my
Well,
toilet issues.
their inventory is time.
Well, they have inventory as well, Andy. Okay, so if you look at even the service-centric
Yeah,
ERP,
the spare
so
parts.
Dave knows what I'm talking about, right? The washroom supplies for them, that is the
Sure.
inventory.
It is everywhere.
Right, because that is going to have financial value. But when we say inventory, what we mean is that is your commercial offering. You are using inventory as part of your commercial offering. I don't know if there are going to be any more layers there, Dave, but that is probably my best definition that I can provide for inventory. So that's how we divide. In comments, Dave? And
No,
no?
this is you're exciting me, Sam.
Okay, yeah. I mean, any washroom jokes, I mean, they're very exciting, right? And all right, let's keep going here.
We'll stay clear of the washroom jokes.
Okay, so we later began working with commercial enterprises. So initially, they were working with the government, and then they started, penetrating the commercial sector as well. Similar challenges in working with data. So they are emphasizing the same keyword data, and in our mind, again, that is their play. Their play is data decisions, not necessarily operations. Okay, if you talk about the operations of those government organizations, they have very different operations compared to your product centric operations. So I'll be slightly careful there in stating that. Okay, now we are talking about, we have built three principal software platforms. Number one is called Palantir Gotham. Then you have the Foundry, and then you have the Apollo. They all have their own sort of place in terms of what they are trying to do, but for the most part, and this is going to be a kind of tech stack for the decision science layer, for the data science layer. Data engineers will be able to relate with what they are trying to do. So here, Gotham and Foundry enable institutions to transform massive amount of information into an integrated data asset that reflects their operations. And then we have some more. Gotham has surfaced insights for global defense agencies, the intelligence community, disaster relief organizations, and beyond. And Foundry is becoming a central operating system not only for individual institutions, but also for entire industries. Apollo is a cloud agnostic, and this is the term that you were talking about, right, Andy? So in this particular case, it's cloud agnostic. So I'll touch on that just in a little second. So they are saying single control layer that coordinates ongoing delivery of new features, security updates, and platform configurations, helping to ensure the continuous operation of critical systems and allowing our customers to run their software in virtually any environment. So number one thing that you should pick on from this commentary is their software. When we say their software, meaning they own the software. This is not supposed to be for the enterprise software. This is supposed to be for the custom development, custom software. And typically in these spaces, when you look at the data science layer, that is very custom in nature. There are companies that are trying to productize those spaces as well. But traditionally speaking, especially if you look at enterprise, even if you look at in the product centric industries, it was massively custom developed. That's where consulting companies made billions and billions of dollars just in developing those ETL workflows, developing those data warehouses, because that was very custom. It was not as standardized as your ERP workflows. Okay, so this is really for that component. Now, the other comparison that we have not discussed so far, and I have spoken about that as well, right, Andy and Dave? So when we look at technologies such as Project 44, E2 Open, okay, so they not only have the network, but they are going to have all of this. They are not necessarily a platform. These guys are a platform. What these guys are trying to deliver is that, okay, their output is going to be more for the product centric industries, because the insight, the kind of network, the kind of supply chain insights that you are going to be needing, that's different than what these guys are trying to do. Okay, so here we have some more commentary. The extended timeline ordinarily required to realize results from implementing new software solutions is not a viable option, and they have very clearly stated their position that these are very complex problems that they are trying to solve with the custom development. And typically organizations, the only choice that they had before when they did not have access to this platform is to custom develop, and organizations failed miserably with those initiatives. So they are able to expedite that cycle. The very similar value prop that ERP software have, because rather than developing it from scratch, you should be buying it. These guys are saying, I'll provide a technical platform so that you guys can cook your own recipe, but I'm a platform, I'm a technical platform, and if you look for very custom offering, then you will be able to do that. That's the real value prop that they have. As a result, our customers are increasingly adopting our software, which can be ready in days. Now, let's be serious here. Okay, so we are talking about one of the most complex problems. We are talking about billions and billions of dollars, and these guys are saying it can be ready in days. The reason you can be ready in days is because you're a technical platform. You are not doing anything. Okay, customers have to do everything. Okay, so you are not necessarily being ready in days. Yes, you can provide a lot of capabilities. If you compare this with the custom development, obviously those companies need to develop a lot of technical boilerplate framework. So from that comparison, yes, you could be ready in days, but again, it's not the right comparison if you were comparing this with any of the enterprise software categories, which are doing a lot more heavy lifting from the business perspective.
Don't forget, they're saying which can be ready in days. They're not saying which will be ready.
Exactly. So now we are talking about sales.
That's right. Marketing.
Exactly. Okay, so obviously they are very clear in their position that they are comparing it with over internal software development efforts, which may take months or years, which is right. This is not wrong at all. Okay, so now we have some comments here. Customer data and not necessarily operations, unless you are talking about operations of software development or departments. We have already touched on that particular point. The software-centric ops are completely different from departments of an industry-centric company that primarily uses an ERP. That's a distinction there. You guys need to note that. The audience is data engineers and scientists. Again, the audience is very different, okay? So for ERP, the audience is going to be business users. They are trying to perform their transactions. This is very different. This is the analysis piece. This is the study piece. This is important, but it's not as mission critical as your core ERP workflows where you are processing your transactions. Now, some more commentary here. Critical infrastructure needed to integrate our customer data and operations and run their software virtually in any environment. So that is the positioning of their different platforms. Now they are saying Gotham and Foundry allows users of varying technical abilities to collaborate effectively in our platform. Again, this is primarily data collaboration. It's not really more of the process collaboration. Yes, you can build some of the processes, but this is really the data connectivity and data collaboration is what they are talking about. And that's why they keep using the term data engineers. Data engineers can integrate any data sources. Analysts can clean and transform data. So the personas are going to be very different. In the data world, you have very different department in general. If you look at a billion-dollar company and their operations, typically their software teams or the business teams are going to be very different from your data team. They typically have boundary there. Traditionally, those boundaries were there. So that's where these people belong. And that is going to be your data engineers, analysts. They are trying to write models. And one of the things that I have been arguing is the real place for AI, especially if you talk about the AI that is going to forecast any of the insight, the real place for that is in the data department. It might not be in the transactional department or the real operations department, which is kind of ERP. So that's why they are saying that, these guys are designing custom models for AI. So for example, let's say if you want to develop your own personal LLMs, this is where you do inside this particular platform, and that's why it is so hot, at least the way it is positioned. So business users can conduct daily workflows and senior leaders can make critical decisions. The two platforms can either be used separately or bundled together as a single ecosystem. So that's their sales strategy, that they are selling it separate or together, whatever companies want to use. They keep using the term central operating system, which I don't agree with, to be completely honest. Everybody's trying to claim that. Both platforms backed by Apollo can be deployed in almost any environment. So Apollo is the infrastructure. The others are your product that are sitting on top of Apollo. That's how the positioning is. Apollo to enable continuous deployment, configuration management, central software operations management. And when you get into the whole custom development space, that's where these things are going to be slightly more relevant. For the most part, if you're simply buying software and using it for you, it is not as relevant. Dave, comment?
I know you're going to get
You're
to
chuckling.
it in a minute, but I'm just like smiling because my favorite part of this entire slide is specific to Apollo, where, it says that it's basically built to ensure continuous delivery of your client's software anywhere our customers are, specifically calling out in the cloud, on-prem, but my favorite part, or even more rugged environment. And to me, that just shouts government.
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
who else needs field operations and continuous, software deployment, right? I mean, like, that's what this stuff was built for, and it's kind of amazing to see some of how they're trying to position this, because I think there's a very clear spot for this in the marketplace, and it is not a centralized ecosystem to replace ERP. So.
Could not agree more. Great point. By the way, I mean, their CFO in my mind is not as seasoned as some of the other companies that we have reviewed, to be completely honest. Okay, there are layers to this. If we were reviewing, for example, let's say Salesforce, Oracle, not too sure. Salesforce was really good, if I remember correctly. Workday was really good. So these guys are slightly newer. They'll get there, I guess, with their commentary. So right now they are not there yet, but obviously they cannot mislead. So that's why we have a lot more clarity. Here we are talking about from signals, intelligence sources to reports from confidential informants. Gotham is now used broadly across government functions. That is right as well. Gotham to our commercial customers, including to those in the financial services industry, they are doing really good there because they have the fraud intelligence, and the whole fraud intelligence piece is very critical as well. That has very custom processes. Typically, organizations spend millions and millions of dollars in enabling that. And even today, it's pretty dumb, to be completely honest. If you look at the fraud intelligence piece, and I'm pretty sure you guys have experienced this, right? I mean, typically, it's going to catch you rather than catching criminals, to be completely honest, okay? It's going to make your life hell because the algorithm is very light. It does not necessarily understand the real trend. And that's why they need to be a little conservative overall in tracking that. So obviously, that impacts the customer experience as well. But these guys hopefully are able to do much better job there. Because the steps and methods used to build data pipelines are difficult to understand. And again, they are talking about data pipelines, which is a very specific term that is used in the data industry. We built Foundries backend to solve the root of this problem. So they are talking about Foundry that is used in conjunction with your data pipeline. Apollo, again, it's a technical platform. So are in cloud, on premises, even more. So this comment, Dave, you already mentioned, I guess. Have anything here? I think I'm good. I don't have anything else. Okay, so I have some comments from the audience, so let's touch on them first. So we have one from Stefano. So thank you so much for joining. We have one from Therese, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. So he is saying most ERP solutions like NetSuite are pre-built for basic functions that will be usable out of the box. It's an ambiguous statement, though. In order to utilize the full capacity, it would take months. So this is a very interesting statement. I would not necessarily compare this platform with NetSuite. NetSuite is in very SMB space. It's a pre-built, pre-flavored platform to run your business from the operations perspective. This is more of the data kind of development platform. So comparing it with ERP is not a fair comparison in my mind. Any other comments, Dave or Andy? Do you have anything to add on this? No?
No, I agree with you, and it's hard to pull from the comment if he was trying to pull the comparison or just add on to the fact of kind of what that marketing language was.
Yeah, I don't think he was talking about comparing it to NetSuite. I think he was just talking about concepts of what a package like NetSuite will market being similar to this.
Yeah, I think I agree with your assessment, guys. So thank you so much for those additions. If you guys don't have anything else, I'll move to the next one. Using AI with distributed databases could cause bottlenecks in many situations, right? Okay. Now, this is a very interesting comment. I am not going to have any comment on that unless you guys have any insight.
I mean, I would say it would depend on how, what AI we're talking about, how it's been implemented across the data set. At the end of the day, aggregating all of that data and looking ways to leverage AI, through that, some of that is really what we're talking about here on a much broader scale. So I think in the SMB space, and even in the enterprise space, it would be Fortune 50 companies that are looking to tackle some of these things and above. When you're talking about, a lot of people love to talk about AI, and I joke about it with my LinkedIn headline. But the reality of it is the data that is out there today and available, and even some of this marketing talk, talks about it. But the integrity that sits behind that data, there's you can't really make a play for tapping into it with AI. That's my opinion. I think we are moving towards that, and it's fun. It's a fun conversation, but the reality is we are very, very far in a practical setting. I'm talking SMB and into the enterprise space from being able to leverage that, right? We still see on a daily basis these organizations, these size organizations, utilizing kind of third-party bolt-on tools in a regular fashion with a lot of manual intervention, a lot of manual process flow.
Yeah.
That is light years away from leveraging any sort of AI, modeling to tap into the underlying data. So I don't want to go into a whole diatribe about it.
Yeah, great insights, Dave. Thank you so much. We have one more comment here. Okay, so he was talking about mainly pre-built solutions, and even in that, I think there are going to be many different layers. Everybody is going to say they are all pre-built, but what is pre-built is the question. So in these guys' cases, they are providing you the technical boilerplate that any of the custom development teams have to develop. That is something you are going to get pre-built, but you are not going to get the business functionality that you typically get as part of ERP. So there is a massive difference between what this tool is trying to do versus what ERPs are trying to do.
Yeah. I think a good kind of reference point people may understand is, if you think about deploying something on AWS, right?
Exactly.
It's the same thing.
Yep.
You can deploy something this afternoon on the AWS infrastructure, but what you're deploying and the functionality behind that is what, needs the time to be able to, be brought forward.
So therefore you can do it today.
Sure. You could launch something if you have
I said you can.
You can, yes.
Yeah, but guys, I mean, just on a serious note, I guess, Dave is on to something. So here, I think the right comparison is probably going to be AWS and GCP as well as Azure, because again, this is a technical platform which is going to provide you a lot more than just AWS. AWS is at the infrastructure layer, so here you are getting a lot more, but that is the right comparison. So you're right, Dave.
I think this is like a combo. That's the way I take it, right? Yeah. Like this is kind of the combo pack of, I think Snowflake's a perfect comparison when you talk about the kind of AI, the data aggregation, the underlying infrastructure part of that.
Yeah.
And then you have like that AWS type of, infrastructure with the, with what they built with the Apollo. So I think bringing those two things together is how you think about a solution like this. based on my experience, kind of what I've learned with.
Could not agree more, guys. Great insights. Okay, so I'll keep moving here. So here we have some insight. 361 customers. Overall, the number of customers that they are going to have are going to be far fewer because obviously they all are going to be a lot bigger customers. So this is a very similar comparison with your SAP. The average customer size is going to be much higher, but the overall number of customers are not going to be as high. Okay, so that's their place is literally like super enterprises. They are looking at, and by the way, they are present in 60 industries. Can you believe this? 367 customers and 60 industries. Literally, in each of the industries, they have what, 6 customers? Which is crazy. So 6 top of the top is what they have. That's their place.
Each one is over 10 billion revenue.
What's that?
I said each of those 6 in each industry is probably over 10 billion in revenue.
More than 10, I would say.
More
a lot
than
more than 10.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be my understanding, right, Dave?
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. The comment I was going to make, when you kind of look at some of the stats, again, kind of getting back to where does this thing fit, right? Yeah. I don't know of another solution, let's just say, that could, manage 60 unique industries with the same infrastructure. So again, like, where does this kind of fit into the bucket? I think that's just one more stat that kind of lends back to, even though some of the marketing and positioning would maybe have you thinking, oh, maybe this is something, that's ERP-esque, things like that should really jump out to folks to understand this is something much different than what's traditionally thought of.
Could not agree more. Great insights. Okay, so I'll keep going here. So many, diverse personas using your software primarily because of data. You are a data platform or a custom software for very complex collaboration workflows. So those are some of the comments that we have. So here, what else do we have on this? Some revenue segmentation that they have provided, which is the 56% came from customers in the government segment, 44% came from in the commercial segment. But again, all of these are going to be very large enterprises. Even the government are going to be very, very, very large organization. Our business continues to have global presence. In 2022, we earned 61% of revenue from customers in the US and 39% from those abroad. So obviously, most of these organizations are going to be very global. Our software is in hands of factory workers, soldiers, clinicians, prosecutors, investigators, claim adjusters, okay, technicians, intelligence analysts, and social workers around the world. The only clarifying comment I'm going to have here is all of these personas are very data driven. That's why they are using. So sometimes for them, it's just going to be a dashboard where they might be getting a lot of intel and they might be running their operations. But again, they are not necessarily managing their operational workflows using this. Okay, this is going to be a secondary platform that they are using to glean insight and to plan to strategize. For example, if you are going to be in the counter-terrorism department, then your goal is going to be to really plan of attack, how you are going to plan that attack. For that, you need a lot of insights. This is where you are going to get the insights, because for the most part, unifying these data sets was very, 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 very difficult overall. And that's the problem that they are trying to solve, along with the security, which is huge. And if you look at financial services, security is huge as well. And we are going to see how they are enabling security. Because when you are going to be sharing this intel, obviously, it has to be very confidential intel. And we'll see a little bit in terms of how they are doing. So I don't have any other comments here. Again, central operating system, I'll call out a little bit. This might be a central operating system for those government organizations, but not necessarily the real operating system or the fabric. I would not see it that way. Okay, so they have done some work with Airbus, which is probably a manufacturer. For example, we initially focused on the production of A350 aircraft, and the deployment of our software soon grew into Skywise, our aviation platform that has become the central operating system of the airline industry. Guys, again, the keyword here is the industry. Okay, when you look at the industry-wide data sets, industry-wide planning, industry-wide strategy, that's a very different problem than what your ERP systems are meant to solve. Okay, so again, these things did not even exist. Companies were struggling to correlate these data sets. So now you have technologies such as your Blue Yonder, E2Open, Project 44. They are trying to attack the same problem. That's why they are also equally hot. Okay, these guys are trying to solve very complex custom industry-wide problem, which is again not your ERP. Even though you have the same customer, here also you are dealing with Airbus, but here it is not. I mean, they will be using SAP or some other ERP system inside their four walls. This is very, very, very custom outside of your four walls. When you have to plan at the industry level, or when you have to plan your external supply chain, that's where this is going to be really relevant. Skywise, and so if you look at some of the other industries, for example, airline uses systems such as your Sabre, Amadeus, okay, and those systems companies have tried to replace them for last like 40 years, and they have failed miserably in all of those implementation, including companies like IBM and HP. Okay, because it was at such massive scale that nobody could develop all of that. So these guys are able to replace those systems. That's phenomenal, guys. That's a commendable work. But again, not the same as what you would. Skywise connects more than 10,000 aircraft across a growing community of airlines, maintenance and repair organization. Again, these are networks, industry-wide networks, very different problem. Okay, each of these institutions use Skywise to more effectively design, manufacture, service, operate, and maintain their global fleets. Again, industry-wide problem, not necessarily the company operational problem, which is a very different problem. This is made possible by our software's access controls, which enable agencies to work on the same platform simultaneously and securely. Okay, some more commentary here. Again, the enterprise market is not necessarily comparable to the other market segments. So people who argue that, if they are successful in the enterprise market, their next market is going to be SMB, I would doubt that. Companies such as Workday have struggled in that positioning. This is definitely very heavy platform. So in my mind, their target market is definitely going to be those enterprises. That's probably going to be their limitation. There might be some use cases for SMB where it might be used because it is not as disruptive as your ERP systems, but for the most part, their market is going to be enterprise. Just because these massive transformation were a failure, it does not mean that the custom development is a solution. So that comment is coming from one of the commentary here. The way they have positioned, so we'll talk about that. These issues are related to change management and poor planning execution. No technology can solve. So these guys have positioned themselves as, since these major initiatives fail and their technology is solving that. So to some degree, if you look at implementation such as your Jetstream that was trying to replace your Sabre, then it could make sense, but not necessarily in every single case. Okay, so the first thing is your change management, business processes, the business workflows. That is far more important than anything else in general. So here we have, it targets large scale, hard to execute opportunities, and they are very, very, very clear in that. At large government and commercial institutions, the high installation costs, the high failure risks, complexity of data environments, and the long sales cycles associated with these opportunities raise the barriers to entry for competition. Okay, then they are talking about complex and more technologically demanding the problem, the more likely we are to succeed. So they are saying anything that is going to be substantially technologically complex, they can pull it off. That's what they are trying to say. But again, different problems here. Software platform available to an increasingly broad swath of potential market. We believe in every institution face challenges that our platforms and products were designed to address. There is a history of failures when investing in new technologies. One U.S. military, department spent more than $1 billion building an enterprise resource planning system from scratch. The system was never delivered, and the project was terminated. So obviously, this is a jab on a company that was trying to do custom development. So number one, why the hell are you trying to do custom development? Okay, you should not be doing that. It's not very smart to do that. So that was the biggest problem. Now, the second mistake that you are doing is, so you failed that implementation, and now you are going to bring another technology platform to develop this. That is not going to solve anything. Okay, you are going to fail once again. So that's where my problem is with their commentary. I don't know if you guys are going to have any comments there. I'll pause.
I think the only thing I would add to kind of where you were going with it, Sam, is the kind of advantage that they would have in bringing something up or potentially solving for some of the complex failures they've called out is the fact that this really isn't the way it's been presented isn't really designed to replace those things. It's really an offset to them. Therefore, you're not losing, back to your kind of original point, you're not losing any of that real operational infrastructure. You're bringing this up alongside of it or, supporting that technology through this platform, thereby gaining all these additional insights, thereby potentially building a case to either further custom develop, whether that is a customized ERP or something along those lines, a bolt on potentially to one of the other platforms that they've already built out. So it's interesting to see that. I get what they're saying, but at the same time, it's not really a fair comparison, because my opinion is that this comes up alongside of it, takes and builds a new picture of what are we really trying to do here. It's kind of back to what we talk about, right? The business process. What are we really doing? Why are we developing this software? What answers are we looking for, where we probably shouldn't have been doing that, but that was what we thought was the only choice, so to speak. So
could not agree more. Great insights, Dave. So I'll keep moving here. What else do we have here? Okay, so many of our customers have had similar experiences investing millions and even billions of dollars in digital transformation projects, enterprise data warehouses, digital twin initiatives that never really worked. So in my mind, the right place for them is they are calling digital transformation projects. Obviously, there are always going to be layers in what is digital transformation. Okay, but their place is really that enterprise data warehouse, decision science. Digital twin could be a place as well, because that is slightly more analytical workload in my mind, that is designed for study. It's not designed for those operational workflows. You very rarely integrate the digital twin process as part of your core operational financial process. You don't do that. So that's why this could be a place for them as well. These failures have made both software buyers and vendors highly risk averse, obviously, but again, this software is not going to solve anything for them. That's not your place. Okay, you are a technology. You are going to be far more difficult to implement technology. So you need far more business consulting help for you. And again, technology is not going to solve anything. Institutions often doubt that any vendor can implement a working solution and are unwilling to invest. Companies are often unable to compete for complex or scaled opportunities because installation cost and risk of failure are too high and sales cycle too long. Again, they don't have to test this. You are solving a very interesting problem, and you don't have to compete with the ERP vendors. These are precisely the opportunities we target rather than reject projects with risky and resource intensive installation requirements. We actively seek them out. You are right. You should be seeking them out because that's your place. Okay, some more commentary here. So these are the same use cases even for supply chain industry platforms, which are in its infancy. Okay, any industry, when you talk about the real, software industry, the way it has evolved, before ERPs were a thing, everybody was trying to develop their custom software, to be completely honest. That's how software industry works. And then you have the product that have been proven 10,000 times, then you don't have to develop that custom. It doesn't make any sense. Okay, these are basics of finance. So here, right now, if you look at the data industry was never as standardized as what we are seeing in 2023 with technologies such as your E2 Open, Project 44. Okay, so they are far more product side. Now, if you are trying to replicate that using this technology, that's not the smartest choice. Okay, but if you are trying to solve something for which you just don't have that solution, then it could make sense. So just to be clear in terms of the expectation, based on this description, the appropriate positioning for them must be data science development as a service, AI model development as a service. Again, this has nothing to do with an ERP. This is the layer you build on top of the transaction layer. Okay, so some more comments there. Now, anything else here that I can touch on? Okay, so one of the things that they have noted here is our platforms were built from the start to protect individual privacy. Okay, individual privacy is a thing. That's what is coming from your GDPR, where you have to enable these data workflows for individuals, meaning each person requires access to a very specific data, and that particular granularity was never there in data platforms. Even if you look at the traditional ETL platforms, they were not as security oriented, and that's why sometimes people will feel that, you know what, CRM is so easy, data platforms are so easy, FP&A platforms are so easy, why are we not using them as an ERP? The reason why they are easy is because they don't have those security workflows built up as part of their platforms. So that's what is coming back, because regulations are driving this now. Okay, regulations are mandating that you have to have individual privacy. So now the security layer that used to reside inside ERPs, now that is going to reside inside your data layer as well. So that is this. So again, the security plus your AI, is sort of driving this. That's going to be the real difference between your Snowflake And that's why these guys are able to do far more than Snowflake. We are not in the business of collecting, mining, and selling data. Okay, so they are very clear. With your E2 Open Project 44, you get data as well as network. So that's a real differentiation. So that here, the only thing you are getting is the technical platform, and then you are on your own. But with those platforms, the real value is data and insights, because that network is not available to anybody. And if you are trying to get that network, that far more political argument than anything else, and it is very expensive as well. So the real value for those platforms is really that network as well as the data that you get. And these guys are really that technical platform. Okay, so here they are talking about the effective privacy protection entails multi-layered overlapping policies and procedures to reassure the protection of fundamental rights. Okay, protection of fundamental rights is going to be at the individual level. So when you look at these government organizations, you are looking at privacy at the individual level. Okay, ERP systems can get at the group level, probably at the role level, but when you look at the security at the individual level for like a billion people, it's a big deal, guys. It's a big deal. Okay, so some more commentary here. I know we are at 624 points right now. So again, this will be used. This will be a platform for building platforms like E2 Open. So in my mind, the right positioning for this is, if you're looking for a technical platform to build something like E2 Open and Project 44, this could be a great platform. Okay, but you are not going to get data. You are not going to get network. Okay, so I don't know why anybody would do that. That's not very smart, especially if you have these tools available for you. This is going to be applicable when you don't have those tools available for you. Also, a lot of these needs are driven by GDPR, which has created a new problem for companies. Consumer-centric transparency, consumer-centric personalization is where the real place for this tool is. Okay, I don't have anything else that I need to touch here. I think we have already touched on these points. So this is the architecture diagram, I guess. It is coming from their site. And here, if you look at the way this is done, these are really your analytical workloads. So yes, they are talking about integration, but this is not necessarily the application integration. This is really the data integration, the way your Snowflake model was. So here you are really integrating all of your data flows. Again, these are not your core operations, core financial workflows. These are supposed to be analytical workload, and that is supposed to be for the decision science layer. Okay, this is that collaboration platform where they are getting the security. So this is how they can build these workflows using the data layer. But again, the intent here is to really detect these trends, identify the recommendations, and execute on those recommendations. Again, very decision science centric workflow. Even though it might come across as more of the ERP workflow, the intent here is not of the ERP. This is great, but this is not core operations. This is a decision support system, sits on top of the core transactional layer. Exactly. And again, this is slightly more industry-wide problems that any of the supply chain suites are trying to solve. So some more comments, and after that we can open up for your comments, guys. So this is coming from their case study, I believe. So here I have some comments. It makes sense with GDPR, etc., as there are not going to be a ton of off-the-shelf offerings available right now, and the space is emerging. That's right. And we don't know at this point of time how GDPR or any other countries that are going to adopt something like GDPR are going to evolve. So these are very new problems that we have in the market. But isn't that the exact value prop of the platform like E2 Open? Plus, they have network. What's the point of building something from scratch if there is off-the-shelf software available? Might make sense for very large enterprises, but for other companies, not too sure. So here they are talking about it can integrate the full life cycle of vehicle data into collaborative environment for analysis, OEM, suppliers, dealers, and others. So this is the comment that I'm trying to make, that the right place for this one should be something like E2 Open Project 44. This is probably not the right use case. I don't have anything else here. Okay, so I'll open up for comments. Dave?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in unless Andy, you want to jump in.
Well, please do, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, this is cool stuff, right? I think this is definitely, while this has been existing, right, we're moving towards these things, these types of tools, this ability to look at things and analyze things in a much more kind of accessible manner than we ever have. So that part alone is cool, right? It's going to be really interesting to see how kind of the mix of public and private sector, along with generalized data integrity and, your point about GDPR and where all of that is and how that is going to influence these types of things. I mean, all of that is still way up in the air. So again, I kind of go back to some comments I made a bit earlier, just from the standpoint of it's a fun conversation. There's a lot of cool stuff to talk about, but at the end of the day, when we're talking about SMB and enterprise space and, the technology that supports those folks, this really isn't that. Maybe in a few years, we'll be having a different conversation. But in the meantime, this is really cool stuff that you should understand and learn about because it's really cool. That's it.
Well, completely agree, Dave. One of the comments Sam made earlier is that this is targeted at the Fortune, or maybe it was you, David, Fortune 50 size company. Those are huge.
Yeah.
And it's far beyond my knowledge. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, I think the problems that they are trying to solve, I guess it is beyond anybody's knowledge, and that's what makes them powerful.
Yeah.
And to be completely honest, these problems are very complex, and they have a place. So I'll touch on this comment, if you guys don't have anything else.
Sure.
So Anders is saying, integrating with data you already have, that certainly seems like there could be a large effort to bring multiple siloed sources in. Have you seen any white papers or examples of gains made there? So Anders, just one minor clarification there. So simply calling this as the data integration platform is probably not fair for them, to be completely honest. Okay, so they are not only integrating the data, but what they are building is the whole data science layer. And that is very expensive layer. Sometimes that could be more expensive than your operations, to be completely honest. Okay, companies invest billions and billions of dollars in building that. For organizations such as your retail, when they are looking to find out what every single consumer is doing. So it is not just the integration of data, it's bringing all of that data from any system that you're going to have, including your industry sources, plus building that data science models that you need to build to be able to get the insight that nobody else has in the market.
Yeah. And to add to that, Sam, I mean, the call out, like for Anders, the great example was in the airline industry with Airbus. I mean, they called it right out in their documentation, and thinking about the amount of data that they are integrating, again, across multiple platforms, multiple, data warehouses, and probably tapping into other data repositories on top of internal data. And to your point, Sam, thinking about not just the data side, right? Like that's one aspect, but the infrastructure required to be able to aggregate any of that it's unfathomable, the things that they're doing, which again is why I say this is really cool. So that's the end of me saying this.
Exactly. I guess custom AI development, and I think we have called out that custom AI development is what they are doing, and that's what makes them powerful. Yeah. Awesome, guys. Any other comments?
Thank you so much, Sam.
Of course, guys. So that's a wrap. If you guys joined for the first time, this was part of our industry series for which we meet every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you guys are going to be here next week. We are going to come back with another episode. On that note, thanks everyone for tuning in tonight.
Happy New Year.
Thanks, everybody.
Happy New Year, Andy. I cannot thank our guests enough for coming on the show, for sharing their knowledge and journey. I always pick up learnings from our guests, and hopefully you learned something new today. If you want to learn more about Dave Chrysler, head over to thechrysler.club. CHECRYSLER.CLUB. If you want to learn more about Andy Pratico, head over to essoft.com. It's ESSOFT.com. Links and more information will also be available in the show notes. Also, don't forget to subscribe and spread the word among folks with similar backgrounds. If you have any questions or comments about the show, please review and rate us on your favorite podcasting platform or DM me on any social channels. I'll try my best to respond personally and make sure you get help. Thank you, and I hope to catch you on the next episode of the WBS Podcast.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the WBS Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. For more information on growth strategies for SMBs using ERP and digital transformation, check out our community at WBS.rocks. We'll see you next time.